Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're leaving the office and doing a handheld review for one of the Game Boy's early entries that's a fun and challenging shoot 'em up that you can take on the go. We're looking at Solar Striker, developed by Nintendo R&D 1 and Minakuchi Engineering, released to the Game Boy in 1990. This would also be one of Gunpei Yokoi's first games for the Game Boy alongside Keisuke Terasaki and Satoru Okada, and it's one of the handful of Nintendo developed shoot 'em ups. But before we get much further, let's check out our mission brief. In the year 2159, the Earth Federal Government is created with the central goal being defending the Earth at all costs, leading to the creation of the Earth Federal Army. The EFA attacks the planet of Turin and is overwhelmingly outmatched. A top-secret mobile unit space fighter is the Earth's last combatant in the battle over Turin. The craft known as the Solar Striker is deployed into battle to save our planet one laser at a time. Gameplay-wise, you've got a 2D vertical shooter spanning 6 stages where you'll blast everything in sight, trying to get as many points as possible. Through each stage, you'll take down enemy formations as you move towards each stage's main boss. You can grab upgrades which will increase your shot range and damage, and once you're fully powered up, you can smoke everything with ease. That is until you get hit and lose a stock and power level. Yes, this is a one-hit death shoot 'em up, though it is generous by respawning you right where you leave off and only dropping you 1 power level instead of down to 0. Don't think it's a pushover since you have to complete the game in 1 credit. That's right, you've got no continues and only the stocks you gather through extra lives. While that may sound daunting, Solar Striker is a fun and solid challenge for a handheld shoot 'em up. Your ship has nimble control and your hitbox is reasonably sized for the small screen. Bullet patterns don't get too crazy, but there are points where the enemy will rush you down and be firing at you too. You can dodge well here, and weaving through shot patterns feels similar to NES shooters from Compile and Capcom. This is also a game that has the Toa Plan school of thought with its design being if you know enemy patterns and where they'll be before they spawn, you can clap most enemies before they even have a chance to attack you, though it's only after figuring all that out first. And the challenge certainly cranks up after the first stage, but even more so on stages 4 and 5. The boss fights get spicy from stage 2 onward, and the last stage is a multi-boss Gradius style rush before battling the Turian core. Once you clear the game, you can play the game again on hard mode by hitting select at the title screen, and if you're looking for more of a challenge, you can try to run the hard mode or go for record scoring. The world record sits at up 700,000 currently. Once you get the hang of things, Solar Striker can be cleared in about 20 minutes and is still a fun one to learn once you're dialed in. The levels are actually on the longer end, being about 3 to 4 minutes apiece, and while this game keeps things simple, it does have those basics down. Graphics wise, Solar Striker was the first shooter for the Game Boy hardware, and the visuals aren't anything groundbreaking, but it does look decent for the handheld. Stages start off fairly simple, gradually weaving in more detail. Levels vary as you fly through planet Turin, and after the halfway point is where levels start to look pretty interesting with more biomechanical theming. While Solar Striker doesn't run incredibly fast, the pacing is decent and can throw a decent amount of enemies on screen without slowing down. Stages 4, 5, and 6 are the most visually dynamic stages and have the more challenging boss encounters. There's a few instances where the screen shakes when damaging bosses, like on stage 4, and that's a really jarring aspect of playing on the handheld or a television with a Super Game Boy or Game Boy player. Boss sprites do get interesting on the back end of the game, though this is where the whole screen shake thing comes in. Despite that, bosses have some pretty neat designs, and the mini boss rush on stage 6 is a fun set of enemies to run through and get upgrades before the final showdown. While the boss designs don't necessarily push convention, it does deliver a solid bite-sized experience that's simple to pick up and with some practice can be mastered so long as the batteries don't run out. Sound-wise, the soundtrack is decent with a couple of repeating tunes and a couple more drony, ominous tunes towards the end. Toru Wasada was the composer here, and it's honestly not bad. Even though it's something that's gonna necessarily cook those speakers, the tunes are okay overall. There's a couple tunes in here that got some seasoning though, like the opening track of stage 1 and tracks for stages 4 and 6. Sound effects are again okay, and got a good bit of thump to them for the handheld. Explosions have a nice weighty crunch, and shot audio is pretty solid, changing over time with each upgrade. It's also mixed pretty well between the music and the action, so in short, the audio is balanced with the hardware in mind. Solar Striker is a decent effort for Nintendo taking a crack at making their own shoot 'em up, and considering it was developed somewhat quickly, it's not bad. The team knew the technology, and why they didn't really try to push it is an argument that can be made, sure, but for what it is, it's really not that bad by any means. You get a shooter that's fun to see how far you can get compared to the last time, or you can just go for the clear and 1cc it. And while it's not overly difficult, it's a good one to play for a starter course shoot 'em up experience that's accessible to newcomers and the experienced alike. Solar Striker gets a 7 out of 10 and is recommended for Game Boy fans and shoot 'em up fans looking to play something light that can get moderately spicy on the later levels and hard mode. It's not the only shoot 'em up to be released on the Game Boy, and it would get a few really good shooters later on, which we'll look at eventually. For an early Game Boy title, this one is okay and typically cheap, being around $10 for loose copies, but often found for a bit less, and about $50 for complete copies at the time of this recording. If you like shoot 'em up games on the portable and easier side, give this one a look. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries coming up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.